Hello, one and all, to my insane, in-depth, spoiler-filled review for the latest Marvel Cinematic Universe project, Avengers: Age of Ultron. Now, this is not going to be the only video I'm going to do on the subject of Age of Ultron. Me, Joey, and James Brady from DC Prime are all going to get together tonight, hopefully, and we're hopefully going to do a video where we're going to have a sort of spoiler cast where we're just going to really go in depth into the film, say what we want to say, kind of argue, God willing, and basically voice our own opinions on the movie. But before I did that, I felt it was kind of appropriate for me to give you guys my 2 cents on the movie as a whole and my problems with it, what I liked, what I didn't like. Obviously, from the fact that I said problems first, you've probably already guessed, right, that I have a lot of problems with the movie. And if you're one of those guys who cannot stand anyone bad-mouthing anything made by the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you might as well just quit this video, because I have a lot of things to say concerning the film itself and how it handles being a part of a bigger universe, both as a sequel to the bigger universe and as a jumping-off point for other further movies. And like I said in the beginning of the video, this is a spoiler-filled review, which means I will spoil the fucking shit out of this movie. So, if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to get spoiled about anything, leave now. If you stay behind, that either means you've already seen the movie and you know everything what I'm going to be talking about, or you haven't seen the movie and, like me in most cases, you don't give a rat's ass about spoilers. But like I said, if you do not want to get spoiled on anything, leave the video now and don't come back until you do, because I swear to God, I fucking hate it when people bitch about spoilers when the guy who did the video or article and thing said there are spoilers. So please don't do that. Okay, so if you're still here, that means you've either seen the movie or you haven't seen the movie but you don't care. So, Age of Ultron is the direct sequel to both the Avengers and Winter Soldier, and it is a movie that is supposed to basically serve as the next act for all the storylines that have been set up by both in Phase 1 and Phase 2, and serves as kind of a culmination of Phase 2 as a whole, with the exception of Ant-Man, which is kind of like a smaller scale conclusion to Phase 2, let's say. And as you know, the film basically centers around Tony Stark and Bruce Banner creating the AI Ultron, who goes on a villainous genocidal rampage to basically destroy all life on the planet, because he deems it that peace cannot exist while us humans are here fucking shit up, and we must be eliminated. And so it's up to the Avengers to rise up and stop him from basically killing all humans. And going into this film, I was pretty damn excited, because while I didn't like Iron Man 3 or Thor 2, and I still don't for the most part, Phase 2 in general has been on a great hot streak ever since Winter Soldier. You know, Winter Soldier is my favorite MCU movie, Guardians was a pretty pleasant, pretty fun surprise, and the new Daredevil show from Netflix was fucking amazing. So when I was going into this movie, I thought to myself, okay, this is going to be the next great MCU thing in the long line of MCU things that have been coming out for the past year. We got the stupid generic team-up origin story done in Avengers 1. Now Whedon can really dive headlong into this bitch and make something that's really, really awesome. And if you're going into this movie expecting to get another Winter Soldier, another Dark Knight, a Spider-Man 2, an X2, a Days of Future Past, you will be more disappointed than a Japanese father is to his own son, I suppose. Like, okay, that was a bad analogy, but overall, this is not the bigger, better, more badass sequel that all good comic book movie sequels usually are, as the ones I just listed. This is an average sequel that very obviously wanted to do more, but some bad creative decisions, poor management, and the editing room continuously being scum-sucking bastards who completely murder these movies continues to plague the MCU, and this is the latest example of that. Now, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of great things that you can love about this movie, and in fact, the the reception to it has been pretty positive. A lot of the people who didn't like Avengers 1 are loving it. A lot of the people who loved Avengers 1 are loving this too. And so it's obvious my opinion is once again in the minority on this one. But before I really dive into the myriad of problems that I have with the film, I want to say that this film has some of the best action set pieces in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe and probably in any comic movie ever. The problem with the first Avengers, one of the many ones, was that the action was kind of TV. It didn't really look that impressive. There was nothing really to make your jaw hit the ground, I suppose. And with this film, that's not the case. The opening battle where the Avengers are attacking Baron von Strucker's Hydra Castle is easily one of the awesomest fight scenes I've seen in a long, long time. It really lets every character shine. It makes them relevant. And throughout the whole movie, you just get some beautiful choreography. Captain America, who was pretty much punked in the first movie, is leaps and bounds better here. He has a lot of great fights. The way he uses his shield is maybe a bit more ridiculous than I would like it to be. But it's obvious that Whedon brought in his skill set from Winter Soldier into this one and amped it up even more. Thor gets in a lot of good shots. Tony gets in a lot of great shots as well. The combos between certain characters are really good, like Black Widow using Cap's shield, or Thor using Cap's shield as kind of like a deadly frisbee of doom to decapitate robots, which is pretty cool. The new characters brought in, like Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, have different abilities from the rest. You know, a lot of the others have kind of standard powers that are not really that off the beaten path, I suppose. But a Scarlet Witch has these telekinetic abilities. She has the ability to mind screw opponents, and her powers could become potentially very awesome in the following movies. And here she doesn't really get too many high points with her powers because she's just kind of gotten them and she's still learning what they are. But in the moments when she does use them effectively, they do seem pretty powerful and effective. Same thing with Quicksilver. And while Quicksilver himself doesn't really ever get a standout moment like Days of Future Past's Quicksilver did, he's still a pretty solid dude when it comes to the powers department, but it's unfortunate that he never really gets a segment all to his own to really prove himself, at least on an action level. We're going to get to the story later. So overall, the fight scenes are awesome. Everybody gets a good chance to shine, for the most part, of course. And the effects are better. The movie, this is very clearly a big budget movie. This isn't like Avengers 1, which pretty much looked like a borderline TV movie. A lot of the backgrounds in that movie really looked bad, and they didn't look good. And here, that's not really noticeable. Ultron, for the most part, looks pretty solid. All the effects look great. And really, it's just, on a spectacle and visual level, it's a vast, vast improvement over the first film. And in the performance department, there's also a lot of things to like as well. Once again, Captain America, in the first movie, he was kind of punked. He really didn't seem like that much of a leader for the team, even though he was picked by them to lead them because it's in the comics, I suppose. But in this movie, Chris Evans he basically took a big step up as Captain America and Winter Soldier. And he brings that here, and he kind of elevates it even further, where you can really see why this guy is the leader of the Avengers. You know, when he barks orders, he really sounds like a good commanding officer who knows what the fuck he's talking about. When he's giving them these rousing speeches to really motivate the guys, they sound great. You can really tell that Chris Evans is buying it. And Captain America is not really that easy of a character to relate to because he really is that good, honest Boy Scout type guy, and it's kind of really difficult to make him interesting or likable, especially in today's society where guys like that usually get chewed out and spit back out. But Chris Evans does a fantastic job with him here. Thor gets a couple good scenes as well on the acting side, but again, he is still the most wasted character in the entire MCU, and he really doesn't contribute that much except being in scenes that set up his own sequel in a couple years. Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. was just playing himself in Iron Man 3. He really wasn't trying. But in this movie, there are quite a few moments, quieter moments, where he really shows that, no, he still gives a shit, and with a proper script and proper directing, the dude can still pull off a much more layered performance like he did in Iron Man 1. As for some new characters that are introduced, I mean, okay, going back to the Avengers for a second. Bruce Banner and Black Widow, the reason why I'm not really mentioning them in this movie is because they really don't do anything except romance one another, and that's kind of a problem, which I'll get to later. But yeah, that's pretty much the reason why. If you're wondering why I didn't mention Black Widow or Bruce Banner Hulk, that's pretty much the reason. They really just don't do jack shit in this entire film. But as for the new characters, Vision, Paul Bettany's good for the role he's given. I really don't like the Vision. He's just kind of a boring character to me. But I do like some of his snarkier quips, I suppose, where he does show that he's not just bland, boring, as he comes off to me in the comics, so that's good, I guess. Wanda and Pietro were great. I was really thinking that the twins were just going to be here for the sake of adding more spectacle into the movie. And Whedon did add them to create more varied powers and for more spectacle possibilities. But their performances all around are really damn good. Like Wanda's brief freak out where she's, saying how this is all her fault. When the movie starts, she mind screws Tony into creating Ultron. And then it just gets worse and worse. More and more people are killed. Her country's basically being lifted off the ground and is going to be used as a meteor to destroy the entire human race. And then she has this little freak out where she basically screams that it's all her fault, and it's really great stuff. The scene where they're describing their backstories about Tony Stark's bombs being used to murder their family was fantastic. And overall, I was really surprised by them. They easily just could have been generic Eastern European characters, especially with the accents, which I've noticed some people bitch about the accents, but I actually think the accents aren't bad. And to me, at least, it would seem distracting if they just spoke American when they're supposed to be Eastern European gypsy people, I suppose. So I'm okay with the accents. But yeah, the twins, they really sold it. They really worked for me. Ultron was fantastic. For the most part, he was fantastic. Now, his plan might be fucking generic as hell, but James Spader really kills it in his role. He gives the character a lot of humanity, a lot of personality, and he really sets him up from the rest of those monotone, boring, kill-all human AIs that you see everywhere. The moments where he's showing more emotion, where he's acting a bit more casual, those are the moments where he really sells the performance. And minus his plan being really generic, which I'm going to get to later on. He is one of the big highlights of the movie. Alright, so those are pretty much things that I can say that are really positive about the movie. And yeah, now we're gonna get into the nitty-gritty of why I think this movie doesn't work on a lot of levels, but not enough for me to actually call it bad. It's really, really weird. Alright, so this movie blatantly ignores previous continuity, and this is obvious because Joss Whedon himself said that he doesn't like that movies have episodic or serialized storytelling, that he feels like one movie should have its story, that's the beginning, middle, and the end. And that doesn't fucking work, because the main selling point of the MCU, to my everlasting fucking annoyance, is that this is supposed to be a cohesive multiple film / TV series universe where things that happen in one inform the other. Okay, I'm not gonna laugh, I swear, or I'm gonna try. But basically, that's the whole point of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And a lot of the things that happen in this movie don't really work with what happened after or what's coming before. And those are the couple of big sticking points for me. At the end of Iron Man 3, Tony Stark says that it basically goes through a character arc where he says that he's not going to try to build an armor over himself. He's over his third existential crisis, consecutive one, and that he is Iron Man. He is comfortable with who he is, with how the world is, and he isn't afraid of aliens opening another portal to break out and murder us all. This movie completely forgets that. The Tony Stark we see here is verbatim, minus the nervous breakdowns. This guy is verbatim the Tony Stark from Iron Man 3. Once again, he is scared shitless of aliens opening another portal to murder everyone. Once again, he makes an entire army to basically make himself feel better. Once again, he wants to build a suit of armor around the entire world to stop said alien invasion and to quell his own paranoia. This does not make sense with Iron Man 3, where he is over that paranoia, where he is in a better place than he is before, and the Tony Stark at the end of Iron Man 3 is not the same guy in this film. Now, you could argue that the events of Winter Soldier, where he sees that even the people who've been picked to protect us are the ones who are trying to kill us as well, and that's why Tony wants to build a suit of armor, not just to protect us from aliens, but to protect us from potential scumbags like that. There is abso-fucking-lutely nothing but one throwaway line from Banner that even remotely hints at this. Tony Stark regressed into the same guy he was after Avengers 1. Now, you could say, well, Ivan, you hate Iron Man 3, so maybe you should be glad that Whedon pretty much retcons that movie out of existence. And that's the really fucked up thing, because I should be happy that Iron Man 3 got retconned out of existence, but I fucking can't be, because that's one of the things that I liked about Iron Man 3. That is him having a cliche. Basically, Tony Stark is the existential crisis guy of the MCU. Every motherfucking movie he's ever been in, besides Avengers 1, has him going through some existential crisis and learning, oh, I don't have to hide behind the suit of armor or my wit or my alcohol or whatever because I like my life and stuff and more stuff, I guess. That's pretty much Tony Stark's entire character in the entire MCU. And it's so fucking annoying that at the end of Iron Man 3, where I thought we were over this shit, he brings it back yet again. This is the same fucking character arc we have seen Tony Stark do in almost every one of his MCU appearances, bar Iron Man 1, which is what he fucking should be like in this movie, since he's not a paranoid asshole anymore. Okay. The next one comes at the end of the film. It is what I call the furious ass pull, and that is basically Joss Whedon pretty much saying, oh, well, I didn't like S.H.I.E.L.D. getting dissolved at the end of Winter Soldier, which he said in an interview, mind you, very recently, and he basically pulls out a helicarrier out of his ass, and he starts S.H.I.E.L.D. back up. Now, again, I should like this because it means that the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show and its whole reconstruction is basically pointless bullshit, and that show has no reason to exist, and this is Marvel basically telling me, hey, Ivan, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't matter, so fuck it. That should make me happy. But it doesn't make me happy because it destroys what could have been a potentially good setup for Civil War. At that point in the film, Tony Stark tells them, look, guys, there is no fucking way we can save everybody. If we don't blow up this island, the entire planet and everyone on the island is going to be destroyed and we're going to lose. We have to make the hard choice and fucking save as many people as we can and destroy the island for the greater good. And this would have been an amazing setup for Civil War. Them defeating Ultron but failing to save the island and basically resulting in so many people getting killed would have been a great stand-in for the Stanford incident in Civil War. It would have perfectly set that film up. It would have given a proper catalyst for the Avengers to fall apart, to each go their separate ways, for Tony to go to prison, for the government to go after Hulk and maybe even send him into space, and for the events of Civil War to unfold. But we don't get that. Instead, Nick Fury the Deus Ex Machina of Age of Ultron. He shows up with a helicarrier and no one dies. Imagine if at the end of Man of Steel, we have the same battle as we do in the movie, except Superman pulls out a new ability right out of his ass that creates a protective bubble over every single person in Metropolis. So even with the gravity machine fucking up half the city, and then Superman and Zod fucking up the other half, no one dies because of Superman's ass pull power. That is basically what this fucking movie does. And it really, really annoys the shit out of me, because it would have been a perfect opportunity to set up Civil War, and it would have been a nice change of pace for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But no, this is a universe led by spineless cowards who cannot even fucking kill a single civilian in their movies. Why the fuck do you raise the stakes if you're not gonna do anything with them, huh? Huh? Like, you don't even have to show copious amounts of blood and gore. Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman had a battle where a lot of people died, a lot of destruction happened, and then we have a sequel whose events directly spiral out of the tragic events of the first movie. In this movie, no one fucking dies. No one. Seriously. Iron Man kicks Hulk into an elevator full of people, crushes half the elevator, and no one inside the elevator dies. This movie is so ungodly afraid of killing even the most lowly of civilians. It just really stretches it to the point of unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Okay, I'm sorry. My tongue got tied, but it's unbelievable. It's fucking incredible how afraid of death a movie is, bar the exception of Quicksilver, which, if you've seen anything from the MCU, you know this son of a bitch is going to be back in no time. I fucking guarantee it. If this guy isn't back by Infinity War, I will eat my own shoe, film it, put it on YouTube, become a celebrity, rack in the money, and then die of a cocaine overdose 20 years later in a motel in Croatia. Yeah, I swear to God I will do that if Quicksilver stays dead. But back to the furious ass pull. With Civil War on the horizon, you would think that, for once, they would have some balls to go all out. But they don't. At the end of this movie, no one gives a shit that Tony Stark's paranoia created Ultron. No one cares that Wanda manipulating Tony Stark's paranoia made Ultron. No one in the public seems to care that the Avengers were kind of responsible for this whole mess and for basically endangering the entire planet. No one gives Tony so much as a mean look about the whole events of the movie. No one gives Wanda so much as a mean look after Vision shows up throughout this whole movie about the events that happened. And Tony Stark basically retires again after retiring in Iron Man 3. You see where I'm going with this? This movie doesn't make any fucking sense. It really doesn't make any sense with what comes before or after. Oh my God. So, and to really fuck me in the ass even more, this movie has a new team of Avengers show up. And you would think that would be cool, because the lineup is actually kind of cool. It's a bit different than it was before. It's really military-centric. And now you would think that, well, wow, maybe these guys are going to get a nice, cool movie where they're going to be able to do shit before Infinity War. But no. You know where the next movie these guys are showing up in? Is Avengers Civil War. And don't you fucking dare tell me that Captain America 3 Civil War is a Captain America 3. No. Fuck you. Captain America Civil War is a blatant Avengers movie, given by the fact that every motherfucking Avenger, minus Thor and maybe Hulk, are in that movie. No. No. What is the point of setting up a new, potentially cool team just to use them as pawns for the pissing contest between Tony and Steve? Why? Why in God's green earth would you do that? What is the fucking benefit of doing that besides just putting in a bunch of superheroes that you can watch fight? Now, a lot of you are going to say, well, Ivan Batman versus Superman is going to be like that too. However, whenever Steve and Tony fight in anything, over anything, they basically get the entire superhero community mixed up into it with the government and with the world, and they drag in everybody with their stupid bullshit. Batman and Superman never do this. Batman and Superman's battles are almost always confined solely to them. It's not... You're not going to get Aquaman showing up in the battle between Batman and Superman and BVS. You might get Wonder Woman in there, maybe to stop them from doing something stupid and acting as a mediator between the two, but that's pretty much it. Whenever Steve and Tony fight in the comics, and it's happening right now with Jonathan Hickman's run, they drag in everybody in the Marvel Universe into their stupid bullshit. And I'm sick of it. And I'm so fucking sick that we get an interesting new lineup of Avengers at the end of this film, and they're just going to be used as bullshit fodder for the live-action pissing contest between Steve and Tony. Oh, God, the last third of the movie just really destroys everything for me. Like, it shows the film has absolutely no balls. It's really painfully generic that we just get yet another army of samey robots for the Avengers to murder. Ultron goes out like a bitch. He makes this whole big deal of getting a lot of vibranium to make himself a better armor. And then he gets that better armor, and then he gets taken out like a bitch. No, seriously. What fucking sense does it make that Mjolnir's energy can't do shit to Cap's shield, which is made out of vibranium, but it completely mauls Ultron's body, which is also made of vibranium? That doesn't make any sense. Ultron in general just gets taken out like a complete bitch. Now, granted, his final death is fantastic. It's beautifully performed, it's beautifully shot, and it has great music in it. But the fact of the matter is that as a final battle, it's just really disappointing. It's just basically a 1 minute slow motion shot where the Avengers murder Ultron's entire army, then they beat him up some, and that's pretty much the end of Ultron, and that is so fucking disappointing. I hope to God Thanos does not get taken out like a joke, like Ultron and Loki were in the Avengers movies that preceded it. God damn it. Also, what else? Oh God, what else do I want to say? Oh yeah, the Vision thing. Now, I don't like Vision picking up Mjolnir. While it does make logical sense that a guy who is so pure, so innocent and stuff, and he's only been around for a couple of days, he doesn't really have any negative emotions in him, that he would be able to wield Mjolnir. So that you could argue that kind of makes sense. To me, it doesn't. It really, really doesn't. Because being worthy should not be exactly the same as being a innocent guy who has absolutely nothing bad or wrong with him. Because Thor, he obviously still has a lot of things wrong with him on a personality level and on a family level, and he still has his issues, yet he can wield Mjolnir. And then this guy, who we've never seen before, well, if you've never read the comics, who we've never seen before, just shows up, takes Mjolnir twice, just as a quasi-joke. And that really cheapens Mjolnir for me, because the film makes a big fuss out of how everyone is unworthy of wielding Mjolnir but Thor and maybe Captain America. And then the nightmares, which are basically fucking pointless in this movie except to set up stuff or to explain things we already know, or just to explain stuff we already know, it gets completely cheapened. Like, it's just there for a gag, and it doesn't work for me. And then, speaking of things that don't really work for me, the nightmares are basically quasi-explanations of what's holding the Avengers from wielding Mjolnir. Cap has his regrets about World War II. No shit, we have 2 movies that blatantly prove this point. Thor's is basically a setup for both Vision and Thor Ragnarok, and okay. Black Widow's is really just kind of boring, and her confession later to Banner is really badly acted. That's probably the worst acted scene in the whole movie, where she's basically describing the process of how her school worked. And I really dislike the whole fact that Black Widow's amazing backstory has been that big held secret for this long in the MCU when it's really not that interesting at all. We don't even get to see Hulks, so we don't know what Hulks is. Who else got mind screwed? Oh yeah, and Tony sets up the whole plot of the film, which I've already wasted enough time explaining why that doesn't work. Another thing that doesn't work for me is Natasha and Bruce. Now, conceptually, I think this is a great pairing. In execution, it really annoyed the shit out of me. Every scene they have was overly cheesy. Every line they spoke between each other was horribly forced, and it just reinforced that whole, oh, I'm damaged, so I can never be happy trope that's really fucking annoying. And overall, I really just didn't like the execution of their romance, and I really dislike it because that's the only reason these two are in the movie. Seriously, if you took Hulk and Black Widow out of this movie, you would lose almost nothing. Abso-fucking-lutely nothing would have been lost if they just got taken out of the film. They are just there to be more guys to cool do shit in action scenes and to be the romantic couple that fucking annoys the shit out of you because that's a mandatory addition to every goddamn movie these days. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Oh yeah. Oh no. Wait. I forgot. I apologize. Ultron's plan is very comic booky, and that's kind of why I like it. But I also dislike it because it's still kind of generic. This is an idea that popped into my head when I was talking to Steve Baxi. And I really feel like Ultron should have focused less on murdering all of humanity and actually focusing more on evolution. You already have the twins, who are basically humans that have been, through forced augmentation, changed into superior humans. And they worked for Ultron throughout the first half of the movie. I think it would have been far, far more interesting if Ultron basically used them as a template to create more advanced humans. Because Ultron's whole thing in this film is evolution. Humanity must evolve to become better, and to do that they have to get rid of the Avengers. I think it would have been much more interesting if they made him something more like the High Evolutionary. A guy who is taking the most genetically prosperous, or humans with the most genetic potential, on like a Noah's Ark type thing, turning them into their best possible selves, and then using them to either destroy the Avengers or as a quasi-Noah's Ark to repopulate the world once he destroys it in his generic plot. I think that would have been a far, far more fascinating way to go about it than just kill everybody and then wait for God to revive everybody eventually through billions of years of evolution, I guess, which is basically his entire plan. So yeah, I think that his whole idea about evolution is sound and it makes sense, but I really feel like it shouldn't have been limited to just him, and considering the fact how often he talks about evolving humans, I feel like that should have been his plan from the start. Taking the humans with the best possible potential, evolving them into the Homo superior, wink wink nod nod, and then trying to get rid of the others who he finds as undesirables, and then basically rebuild the whole world from scratch. That would have been a far more interesting and less generic route to take Ultron with, and I kind of wish that's what they did, especially because there's a lot of setup for that throughout the whole film. But you may be surprised to hear what my final verdict on Age of Ultron ultimately is, and it is a 7 out of 10. It is the definition of a good/average movie. Now, you might be shocked at this because I've spent the past 17 minutes bitching and moaning about the film and how it doesn't work, how it really poorly builds on what was created before, how it doesn't execute some of its ideas as well as it could have, and how just not good of a time I had while watching it. However, the performances are fantastic. The effects are amazing. Even the new soundtrack is great. Ultron's death is great. And overall, while I have so many problems that should make me hate this movie, I really can't make myself hate it. I don't think this is a bad film. I just think that this is a film that had a lot of its good stuff cut out, which we know is true because Whedon's original cut was over 3 hours long. And I think that the editing room, just as they ruined Thor: The Dark World, they almost ruined this movie as well by cutting out the stuff that really elevated it to a genuinely great sequel instead of it being a painfully average sequel as it is right now. Now, there is a rumored extended cut in the works, and I hope to God this is true, because I really think that there is a fantastic movie in here somewhere, but Feige and company fucked it over somehow by their horrid editing process, and I really, really hope that Marvel Studios bites the bullet and makes a proper extended edition, so we can at least get an idea of what Whedon's true intentions with the film were. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Age of Ultron. Please sound off in the comments below what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And please, as always, guys, remember, Hawkeye in this universe is fucking awesome.